Good evening and welcome to the April 11th, 2023 meeting of the USD 305 School Board. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please be seated. The next thing on the agenda is approval of the agenda, and we have an addendum to the personnel report. Do I have a motion to approve the agenda as amended? Dana moves. Gabe seconds. Any discussion? All in favor, raise your right hand. Motion carried, 6-0. Next on the agenda is the 2022-2023 amended budget hearing. At the March 21st, 2023 Board of Education meeting, the notice of hearing was approved to amend the 2022-2023 budget. The notice was published in the Salina Journal on March 24th. The budget amendment was needed due to a significant increase in free lunch eligible students, which increases the at-risk funding under the law. The amendment has no effect on the local tax mill levy. We now open the budget hearing for the purpose of hearing and answering objections of taxpayers relating to the proposed use of funds and the amount of tax to be levied. Are there any public comments? Hearing none, do I have a motion to approve the amendments to the 2022-23 budget as published? Mark?
I move we approve the amendments to the 22-23 budget as presented.
Do I hear a second? Gabe seconds. Any more discussion? Then all in favor, raise your right hand. Right hand. Thank you. The motion carried, 6-0. Next on the agenda is recognitions and presentations. We start with Michael Chambers from the Salina Education Foundation and the LIFT presentations. Hello.
Thank you so much for having us this evening. Appreciate Mrs. Exline and the board for giving us this opportunity to publicly recognize our LIFT recipients. First, I'd like to talk just a little bit about the LIFT program, and it's made possible by by generous donations from people in our community and charitable foundations. And so what we're going to talk about only happens because people are generous and make donations to support young people as they work to become teachers. So since its inception in 2006, the LIFT program has awarded $425,000 in forgivable loans to Salina's future teachers. And the LIFT recipients are offered forgivable loans to assist them with educational expenses in their pursuit of becoming teachers. And once they return to USD 305 to teach, those loans are forgiven over the time, the first few years that they teach here. So the recipients are selected in a competitive process by Education Foundation trustees, USD 305 staff, and some community members. And this year we have 6 recipients, and Salina Education Foundation trustees are making an investment equal to $80,000 in this group of students. And I've asked each of them here tonight to introduce themselves to you and tell you a little bit about themselves and why they wish to become teachers. So we'll start first with Vanessa Arcio.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Vanessa Arceo, and I am a senior from Salina South High School. I am very grateful for this opportunity that has been handed to me. I knew I wanted to be a teacher since I was about 7 years old. I remember playing in the basement of my grandma's house, school with my siblings and my uncle, and I would always fight with my uncle for the position of the teacher. He, however, would not let me because, as he would say, he was the older one, he had to be the teacher. So I would debate with him and try to convince my siblings to let me become the teacher. That, however, did not go very well. I would just really wanted to become a teacher. Just helping others is one of the things I love to do. I decided last year that I wanted to become a vocal teacher to combine my love for music and my love for helping others. Music has been a huge part of my life since before I was born. My mom told me one day that she would always play the guitar and sing while I was in the womb. And growing up, it's just one of the most important things in my life. Earning the LIFT scholarship means that I am one step closer to accomplishing my dream of becoming a vocal teacher. It also means that I can continue my education without causing a lot of financial stress for my parents. Thank you so much for giving me this opportunity to reach my goal.
Hang on, Vanessa. Next up is Isaac French.
Hello, my name is Isaac French. I currently go to K-State, but first I'd like to thank everyone for the hard work they have done to get me here in front of all of you. It is truly an honor to be in front of those who are willing to support not only the next generation of teachers, but the kids who will be taught by them. Because of you, I can successfully achieve my goal of becoming an educator and providing students with the proper tools to handle this ever-increasingly strange world. LIFT is a blessing put together by all of you, and I will always remember how much of an impact it has had on my life. Teaching will be more than just a job for me. It will become my life. As I develop myself into an educator, I remember a few key things. First, everyone deserves an opportunity to learn and grow, no matter who they are or where they have come from. Second, my job is to inspire students to seek what they are passionate about and how to handle the adult world. And third, to love each and every one of my students as the great teachers have before me. With this in mind, my final piece is to show up day after day full of passion and joy, not only for the subject at hand, but for the students in my classroom. Thank you again for this amazing opportunity. I can't wait to start making an impact here in Salina.
Next up is Grace Hilbert.
Well, hello everyone. I'm Grace Hilbert. I'm so grateful to be here this evening. When asked the question why I want to be a teacher, many responses come to my head. I'm currently working at Hughesner Elementary School. I'm on the care team there, and saying that I love it would be an understatement. By working in a school has helped me tremendously with my decision of wanting to become a teacher. I have great role models to look up to and amazing kiddos I get to love on. I want to make an impact on kids' lives. I love to serve and make others feel loved. I want to be the teacher who encourages, believes, supports, cares, gives, laughs, makes mistakes, and shows up for her school family every day. I'm encouraged by all of the hugs and smiles I receive on a daily basis, and especially encouraged by the LIFT scholarship. I am so thankful, and I couldn't think of a better profession and district to work for. I can't wait to become a teacher, and again, thank you so much for this opportunity.
Congratulations. Grace. Next up is Sarah Orr.
Hello, everybody. I'm Sarah Orr. I am a graduate of Salina South High School in 2011. I am a teacher, a special education teacher at South High School. I have always wanted to be a teacher since I was a little girl. A few bumps in my first round of college, I had to take a break from my mental aspect. So fast forward to October 2016, when I was hired as a paraprofessional at South High, I found my passion again for teaching. Seeing kids' success is the most amazing feeling I will ever experience. My passion has grown even stronger the past 2 years as an instructional assistant and gaining the knowledge in writing IEPs this year. I'm very honored to be a recipient of the LIFT Scholarship. I'm grateful for USD 305 and the LIFT Committee on how much they value future teachers. Thank you.
Congratulations, Sarah. And Aubrey Powell.
Hi. So I've never had to write an acceptance speech before, believe it or not. But the only times I've ever accepted something like an award was impromptu and covered by improvised speeches. But unfortunately, Mr. Chambers immediately told me that I have to come up here and speak to all of you. So there'll be no excuse for my subpar comedy attempts. And firstly, I'd like to thank my friends and family before I get anywhere near talking about how much I love to teach. So my mother, she pushed me to achieve, and growing up, I was always told, you have to get an A for Aubrey. You're not Bobry. And I like to think that for all of that teacher suck-uppery that she taught me, really got me places and really got me here. Fortunately, though, I also have friends who embrace my crazy spur-of-the-moment side, and you'll never guess their nickname for me. It's Bobry. I think my silly jokes and blonde moments during my LIFT interview were one of the many reasons the board decided to pick me. And then lastly, I'd like to thank Mr. Josh Massey from Salina South. Multiple times I decided to reference him during my interview. He really is as good as I say he is, and I know we wrote down possibly giving him an award, maybe give him another one, I don't know. His constant love and support is really what kept me going some days, and even just a simple check-in email from him puts a smile on my face, and people like him really deserve to educate. And so, for me, to educate is to love, and to love is to teach. And so, I'm basically a really big lover, if you couldn't tell. I always have been, and I always will be, and I cannot even begin to explain how ready I am to love, and to educate, and to learn. And so the classroom was always someplace I felt safe, and secure, and seen. And I want to be someone in students' lives that when they look back, they remember that they're somebody and that they can do something and anything with their lives, and they'll do it with excellence. And education is a very, very long, never-ending race, but I believe that with more loving and more passionate teachers, the finish line is just that much closer. I greatly appreciate every single board member for honoring me with this scholarship and label, and I cannot wait to be a professional within the USD 305 family. So again, thank you. Thank you for supporting me and my goals, and thank you for loving.
Aubrey, congratulations. We have one other recipient, Elena Yanakopoulos, who could not be with us this evening. She is a student at Emporia State and wasn't able to be with us tonight. But congratulations to all of our LIFT recipients, and we look forward to each of you becoming fantastic teachers in Salina Public Schools. Want to also take a minute just to talk about our grant program, the Salina Education Foundation grant program. And since its founding, Salina Education Foundation trustees have awarded $807,000 to teachers and staff across the district to make special things happen in their classrooms. And this year, we've committed $28,100 in grants for the 2023-2024 school year. And these grants are funded through charitable gifts made by USD 305 teachers and staff and Salina Education Foundation business partners and other supporters across the community. And thank you to everyone who gives generously to make the grant projects happen in the classrooms and other educational settings across the community. The projects that we supported simply wouldn't happen without your support. All of this year's grant recipients were recognized in their respective school buildings last week by Salina Education Foundation Prize Patrol, and we had a lot of fun surprising the recipients in their classrooms with the students present. It's really fun to see the students get excited for their teachers, and that translates to the students knowing that their teachers are going the extra mile for them. So we awarded outside the grant boxes, which are aimed at rewarding creativity and expanding students' understanding of their community and the world. And Katie Lidgett at Sunset was awarded a grant for her birthday books project. Jenna Eshelman at Meadowlark Ridge was awarded a grant for her PBL composition project. Kirsten Dykes at Central High School was awarded a grant for her Fire Me Up ceramics field trip. Kevin Polland at South High was awarded a grant for his Edible World History project. And Gina Turner at Meadowlark Ridge was awarded a grant for her William Allen White celebration trip. Mr. Dooley, the principal at South Middle School, and Mr. Chrisman, principal at Lakewood, combined for a collaboration for the Culture Crawl in downtown Salina. And then we also awarded 21st Century Advantage grants, which provide support for classroom teachers and give them an opportunity to enrich their students' learning experiences and inspire creativity. Elizabeth Burke at South High School was awarded a grant for her Future Ready library programs. Nikki Chamberlain at South High School and South Middle School was awarded a grant for her Advanced Learners project. Elizabeth Kenyon at Lakewood was awarded a grant for her Makers Space program. And Shelley Parks at Central Kansas Cooperative in Education was awarded a $500 grant for her adaptive board books. Jamie Hoff at Cottonwood was awarded a grant for library STEM activities. And Gina Turner and Katie Lidgett at Meadowlark Ridge and Sunset combined for a collaboration on a library author visit for all elementary school libraries to bring in an author to talk to students. We also awarded Bar Heights special education grants, and these provide funds to support projects which benefit students receiving special education services. And Lauren Turner at Coronado Elementary received funds for functional classroom needs, and Angie Boats at Central High School received a grant for improving students' executive functioning skills. So the Salina Education Foundation Allocations Committee also committed $3,000 in funds to support field trips next year for students across the district. And additionally, $7,000 was made available to support sudden opportunity grants in classrooms. Just once again, thank you for your support of Salina Education Foundation. We appreciate all that you do to make special things happen for our teachers and students across the district. So thanks for having us tonight.
Thank you, Michael. And next, we have Superintendent's Excellence Awards from Jennifer Kamian.
Good evening. This evening, we're recognizing the Superintendent's Excellence Awards. And tonight, Darren Steinman, journalism instructor at Central High, will be taking pictures of our students. Thank you, Mr. Steinman. Our first group of awards this evening goes to Scholars Bowl students at Central High School. Katrina Parody and Melinda Jett are the co-sponsors. Will you please join Superintendent Exline in the front? All the students line up as well. The students here tonight were members of the championship team who took second place at the league level, first place at regionals, and third at state. This is the first time that the Scholars Bowl program has had a team place at regionals or state. As I call your name, please step towards Superintendent Exline so you can receive your award. After you've received your award, please walk to the end of the line and remain standing until all the students have been recognized. Charlene Arietta Rentario, Senior. Elijah Rezano, Senior. Nehemiah Gomendoza, Junior. Keegan Madison, Junior. John Rose, Sophomore. Please allow the Board of Education to congratulate you now. Oh, sorry. Our next award goes to the KMEA State Piano student from Central High School. Guillermo Rodriguez is the band director. Will you and your student please join Superintendent Exline in the front? Jasmine Kasem, sophomore, received a superior rating at the KMEA State Piano Festival in Wichita.
Thank you. Next on the agenda is the consent agenda items. And those include the minutes of the March 21st, 2023 regular meeting, the personnel reports, financial reports including the March bills list, February treasurer's report, February investment report, February journal entries, approving encumbrance listings, which include to CDWG in the amount of $57,510 for the Go Guardian renewal, to CanEquip Inc. for the purchase of 3 grounds maintenance vehicles in the amount of $49,504.05, to Frontline Technology for the annual maintenance agreement renewal in the amount of $131,348.82, to Constructive Playthings U.S. Toy Company, Inc., in the amount of $124,197 for playground equipment for Heartland programs in Ellsworth and Salina. To Smoky Hill for the site licenses for Zello in the amount of $26,573. To Curriculum Associates, Inc. for the renewal of iReady in the amount of $240,399.50. To Mastery Connect in the amount of $24,774.25 for the annual renewal. Next is to approve Heartland Programs vehicle bid to Conklin Cars Salina in the amount of $20,545, which includes a trade-in allowance of $4,000. Approving architectural services for roof replacements at Schilling, Central High, and Salina Education Center to M Squared Architects in the amount of $35,000. Approving a roof replacements bid to Ryan Roofing, Inc. in the amount of $1,850,000 for a PVC roofing system at Central High, Schilling Elementary, and the Salina Education Center. Approving Salina High School softball complex electrical services to Heineken Electric Company, Inc. in the amount of $22,673.45. Approving the beverage pouring and snack vending services agreement with Mahaska. Approving Lakewood Middle fundraising activity for the sale of chocolates during the month of September 2023. Approving the South Middle fundraising activity for the sale of chocolates during the month of September 2023. Approving the Federal Head Start and Early Head Start grant applications for cost of living adjustments and quality improvement in the amount of $413,992, and no match is required. Approving the Federal Head Start and Early Head Start 2022-2023 budget revision in the amount of $195,000. Do I hear a motion to approve this consent agenda? Mark?
First, I just want to acknowledge all the work people put into preparing all these things. Sometimes at the start of these meetings, the consent agenda seems like it's just, there it is. It's a lot of work pulling all that together, and all these things are tremendously important. So with that, I thank everybody and move we accept the consent agenda as presented.
Have a second? Gabe seconds. Any more discussion on that? Then, all in favor, raise your right hand. Motion carried 6-0. Next on the agenda is the public forum, and I don't believe we've had anybody request to speak there. We need 1 day advance notice for that. The action agenda starts with the board policy with Aaron Wright.
Good evening. As you'll recall, at our last board meeting in March, we had a work session to begin a process of reviewing some of our, well, all of our policies in totality. Last session, we reviewed the first batch. Based on that discussion, we made some changes to policies ICA, ICB, and IDACB, most of which were some grammatical changes. We did, however, remove the reference to films and tapes in ICA, which posed quite a bit of discussion, as I recall last time. So we bring those back to you pursuant to board policy for second reading tonight. Does anyone have any questions? Those changes have been presented to you in your packet. If you have any questions on those, I'm happy to speak to those now. If not, we're recommending that the policies that we provided you this evening in your packet be adopted by the board.
Do I have a motion? Gabe?
Madam President, I move we approve the policy changes as presented.
Dana seconds. Any discussion? Then all in favor, raise your right hand. Motion carried 6-0.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next on the agenda is the 2023-24 Chromebook Student Handbook. And yes, with Ms. Rector.
Good evening. Well, actually, I have a really easy one here. Basically, there are no proposed changes to the 23-24 Chromebook student handbook. And so, as in past, any yearly date changes or personnel changes are updated and included. But this handbook was reviewed, and there were no updates needed at this time.
So do we have a motion to approve the Chromebook handbook? Mark?
Since we approved it last year and there's no changes, I move we approve the 23-24 student handbook as presented.
Good. Bonnie seconds. Any discussion on that? All in favor, raise your right hand. Motion carried, 6-0. Thank you. And next is the Salina Virtual Innovation Academy. Is it a
Yes.
handbook? Yes.
No, it's not a handbook. It's actually going to be a recommendation to basically ask for permission to be able to change the grade levels served by the Salina Virtual Innovation Academy. Over the last 2 years, we have served a K-12, basically provide programming to K-12. And it's been a very exciting 2 years, full with lots of opportunities to meet students' needs and to kind of reevaluate and think through, how do we best serve our community and work within the resources that we have. And so as we have looked at the enrollment numbers for the program, we have seen a decline in our enrollment from the 21-22 school year to the 22-23 school year. And most specifically, we have seen the decline in the elementary program. And so in 21-22, we had around 34 elementary students, and we are at actually 3 elementary students at this time. And so there's lots of reason for that decline. When we think about when we went to the virtual environment, it was coming right off of when we were providing remote access for our students in regards to the COVID pandemic. And then we saw the remote numbers decline over time. And we really wanted to make sure that we had an opportunity with the Salina Virtual Innovation Academy to meet the ongoing needs of our community in the sense of needing virtual programming, but also when we started this program, we still had COVID COVID very much on the mind with the pandemic. And so we saw a higher number in elementary students that first year, but as parents have been able to send their students back to the schools and recognizing that immediate concern is no longer there, what we're finding is that really our comprehensive elementary buildings being at the brick and mortar with the students and staff on a daily basis is what our community is wanting, our elementary community is wanting. And so we have seen most of those students go back to our elementary schools. And the 3 students that we have right now, 2 of them are 5th graders, and so they would be moving on to middle school. And then the other student, we are encouraging also to go back to our on-site elementary building. So we'll be working with that family to make sure that there's choices for them in the sense of that transition back to school. But really, we would like to discontinue offering elementary programming at the Salina Virtual Academy and move to a 6-12 program model, and so that way we can focus our resources on where we have our largest numbers. Right now, we have the majority of our students, we have 64 students at the high school level, and we have 12 students at the middle school. So we have seen middle school decline as well, and so what we would expect to see is that our high school numbers will stay pretty steady. The year before we had 68, now we have 64, but we have seen middle school decline from 27 to 12, but we do believe that we still have a need for that middle school environment, that programming with Salina Virtual. So right now we are at 89 students. We will open up enrollment with the regular online enrollment process, but we would like to do that with just grades 6 through 12 for the future.
Thank you. The high school students have lots more classes to take since
Yes.
last meeting when we
Yes,
approved them.
Dr. Stevens presented a whole list of opportunities for our students, and the Salina Virtual Innovation Academy staff worked really hard to make sure that we have great choices for our high school students and our middle school students with the programming.
So do I hear a motion to approve this change?
Madam President,
Gabe?
I move we approve changing the services offered at the Salina Virtual Innovation Academy from grades K through 12 to grades 6 through 12, effective for the 2023-2024 school year as presented.
Do I hear a second? Scott seconds. So it's been moved and seconded to make this change. Any discussion? Then all in favor, raise your right hand. Motion carried, 6-0. Thank you. And next on the list is visible learning, Mrs. Rector.
Yes, so me again. So actually, I'm really excited to be able to bring this opportunity to you and to discuss the proposed professional development plan that we have. As we continue to work toward our district mission to be the best place to learn and work, it is important that we support and provide opportunity to our individuals that have the most impact towards that goal, and that is our teachers and our building leaders. It is the daily instructional interactions between our teachers and our students alongside what is happening in our schools that really makes the biggest difference. We know that the classroom is pivotal to the school environment and the culture that is there. And what we would like to do is we would like to partner with Corin to provide a sustained ongoing professional development plan utilizing John Hattie's visible learning research as a framework to create a district-wide focus on success and learning. We know that research shows that empowering teachers to collaborate and discuss best practices promotes a school culture focused on making decisions about what is working and not working in schools. And so the partnership with Corin would help us refine our continuous improvement efforts with a common language and cohesive process that is moving all schools forward. So really thinking about the fact that as we work together in our schools and our district, professional development days are a standard for us each and every year, but we want to look at those from the aspect of looking at it over the long term and having this collaborative, collective effort and working with Corwin and their visible learning team. We know that our teachers work incredibly hard to meet the needs, and they are doing very terrific things in the classroom. The focus of this professional development really isn't about asking a teacher to stop doing something or really asking a teacher to start doing something. It's really about asking our teachers in our schools and thinking about what we do in our classrooms that impact our students and what we do in our schools that impact our students, and making sure that those efforts, that hard work is reaching to the very levels that we want it to reach to improve student learning. And so as we reflect on the instructional practices that we already have in our schools, what Corwin would be doing is working with us kind of side by side, working with those schools to make sure that their building plans and their initiatives that they have based upon their staff development needs assessment process, those things will still continue to happen. But what it is about is looking at those practices that are happening in the classrooms and thinking, how is that practice making the most impact? So looking at the types of strategies that are already deep in our schools, such as feedback, we know that feedback is one of the most effective strategies that a teacher can use, and that feedback is what helps students understand what they're learning. It also helps teachers articulate what they want students to learn. And so teachers looking at their practices on feedback, how is that making that impact? Is it getting them the movement that they need? And what's best practice around what are those kind of critical attributes to feedback to make it one of those high-yield, effective strategies? And so working with Corwin, who has national presenters that would be working with us, they would be then having conversations with the schools, looking at the data, talking with teachers and saying, okay, here's what's happening in the classrooms and how do we make that more impactful, but also how do we kind of step back and work as a teacher group collectively to say, here's really what we think we need to do to improve learning. And getting colleagues to talk amongst themselves about what's happening in the classrooms, because that's really where the power is. And when we think about teachers and knowing that if they are the most important resource in our schools, them working together to say, this is why we're doing this and this is the impact it's making, is going to let them kind of know their power. And they talk a lot about in the visible learning, know thy impact. And so this is really helping teachers kind of recognize that. The other aspect to this is that making sure that we recognize that buildings have initiatives and things in place that they've been working very long and very hard towards. And so working with Corwin, what that will do, working with that group, will help us reflect upon those and allow those building leaders and those building teachers to say, okay, this is what we want to continue. But also, very importantly, this is maybe what we want to abandon. And knowing that sometimes there are things and processes in schools that we need to reflect upon and say, okay, this is where we need to use it, and this may be where we don't want to use it, or this is how it needs to be used, and how can we make sure that we have the supports for our teachers and for our students to be able to implement those strategies in our classrooms. And so with this professional development plan, what we're looking at is working with Corwin to provide ongoing professional learning over a 3-year period. That professional learning is broken down into some different components. One of those components is the professional development that will be provided to all general education teachers and also the administration. And so they will be building upon kind of that foundation, the research, understanding, the visible learning research that we have from John Hattie, which is basically over 15 years strong in the time that's been spent on looking at high impact strategies, and also look at different meta-analysis to make sure that those strategies that they're reflecting, when does it work and how does it work, and when should and how schools should use it. And so they'll be talking about that and then also reflecting on the current practices that are happening within those buildings. And so they will have 3 days of working with basically a presenter or a professional that's coming in to work with us and to say, here, the consultant is the term I was looking for, consultant to work with us and to work with buildings and kind of a multi-building groups and say, here's the learning that we're going to be involved in, and then how does that learning go into practice and be embedded in the classrooms? Because really, for professional development to be impactful, it has to be embedded in the classrooms and it has to be part of that conversation. And so those 3 days will be focused on that, and those will be spread out throughout the school year. Then we would have 2 days of virtual coaching workshops or 2 half-days of virtual coaching workshops, and that's to kind of build that infrastructure a little deeper into the professional development plan. And then also we'll have 2 days of instruction that's for the building administrators and that leadership team. So looking at a total of 5 professional development days with basically kind of larger groups that are on site with a consultant from the Corwin Visible Learning team. And then we'll have 2 half-days of virtual learning, but along with this are resources that will be basically tailored to our district and based upon the visible learning research, and that each teacher will have resources that they will be getting at that professional development. When we look at the cost of this over kind of that full year with all of the staff involved, we'd be looking basically at a cost of less than $100 per teacher as they're involved in each one of those days. And so overall, what we're looking at is just thinking through how do we make sure that the professional development that we have in our building in our district is cohesive and giving us the common language and kind of the framework to work under as we look to implement our continuous improvement plans that were based upon our building needs assessments. Questions?
I don't have a question, but I was a little like, okay, are we throwing something new? And I'm watching our teachers as you're talking, and when you said, we're gonna talk about what's working and get rid of what's not, and there was a fist pump back there. And so, to me, that says it all. That's what I needed to see as somebody who's not in the classroom every day, who doesn't know what it's like for you all. So I appreciate your enthusiasm in showing that, because you saw me watching you, and I wanted to see how you would react. So I'm glad to hear that. I'm glad to see that. I feel better.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's what's so important is really the power is in the classroom with the teachers and with the students. And when teachers are talking about learning and students are talking about learning and we're working together, that's when we know we can move forward. And we know the great things to do, and we also want to make sure, though, that as we think about our staff across our district, we have a lot of new staff, a lot of staff that are with us, on different types of licensure, and we want to make sure that we give them the best foot forward to be able to work with their colleagues that have that expertise and to have those deep conversations about learning, because that's what we're here for.
Ms. Ixling? Yeah, I just wanted to say, Hattie's work has about over 250 strategies that teachers use each and every day in the classroom. Teaching is complex. What our teachers do, they make thousands of decisions a day. And trying to figure out what is it that I'm doing that has the most impact on student learning so that we can narrow in on those things and we can abandon where we're spending time that maybe doesn't have as much of an impact. 90 to 95% of what we do in classrooms every day positively influences students' learning. And so good teachers intuitively know what they're doing that's impacting student learning. But we're going to talk about everything from direct instruction has a strong positive impact. Concept mapping with students, and we've done that for years, strong positive impact. Feedback, Shanna mentioned that. Phonics instruction, we just adopted a new reading program at the elementary level that has that phonics built right in. Strong positive impact on student learning. Summarizing is one of the high yield strategies. So things that we do all the time, and just how do we make that better? The other thing that I want to point out is the number one strategy in his research is collective teacher efficacy. And when we talk about being the best place to work, everybody wants power over what they're doing on a daily basis. They want influence in decision-making. And so if we really can create a climate where teachers are just getting around a problem and saying, how do we address this? And respect their expertise to make that happen. Let them look at the impact that they're having and celebrate, whether that is a positive impact or whether we're saying, you know what, this is something we need to abandon. That's a positive conversation for kids and can really change the culture in our district. And I just think it'll be really empowering.
Could one of you perhaps speak a little bit too to how this helps take some weight off the principals perhaps, or how it helps them adjudicate everything they're supposed to do along with providing the support for teachers?
Yeah, one of the things that as we work with principals and we talk through kind of how to do the continuous improvement process, and we provide a lot of structure and instructional leadership, but really the principals take that back and take that information and say, well, what does it look like in my building? What is it that I need to do as I work with my teachers in my building to meet the students' needs that we have? What this will do is it actually working with that consultant and kind of working where we're all working on the kind of that same framework, that same language, will give principals kind of that structure and support that they need. So that way they don't have to do that kind of that minuscule planning of that. They get to be part with the teachers to be side by side in that learning experience as we go through that PD day, and then be able to utilize that framework, that structure across this district to help develop what they're doing in their schools. But I just, to kind of just reemphasize that it really is about what they need in their building. And so we don't want individuals to say, oh, well, here's a new initiative that we're doing, because that's not really what it's about. It's really about looking at what we're doing within and harnessing that collective efficacy that Mrs. Exline mentioned about teachers working together, because that is the most powerful thing that we can do as a school district.
Any other comments, questions? Then, do I have a motion?
Madam President, I move we approve the purchase from the professional development proposal for visible learning from Corwin Visible Learning in the amount of $147,960 for 1 year as presented.
Do I have a second? Yeah, Bonnie, second. Thank you. If there's no further discussion,
Get our staff to know each other, to understand, building initiatives. So we really want to protect some time at the building level. Our negotiated agreement says that we have 2 days for professional learning prior to school starting, and then 3 other days as scheduled during the calendaring experience during the school year. So what we are recommending is that we move one of the during the year days up in the school year to allow teachers to have a really good start with this. So what would happen is, right now we have a day on April 9th that is an in-service day. We are recommending that we move that day to August 25th. So teachers would have a day of the why and the conceptual understanding of visible learning prior to school starting. They would also have a day with their building peers prior to school starting. Then we would have a full week and 4 days of school, and then another visible learning day, okay? So that would be the calendar adjustment. And then our hope is that during the negotiations process that we can visit a little bit and go ahead and keep that date on April 9th as an in-service day. But because the agreement only allows us to have 5 in-service days, we really need to move it right now so that we can contract for the best presenters. What I don't want to do is be in a situation where we don't get the highest quality presenters for our teachers. So we need to go ahead and move that day from April 9th to August 25th, and then we'll work with teachers, and if they want that April 9th date to be an in-service still, we'll work through that during the negotiations process, and we can make that happen, if that's what they're wanting to do. So my recommendation would be to approve the calendar that's presented in here with that one change.
thank you. Do I have a motion? Yes, Mark?
I move we approve amending the 23-24 calendar by moving the April 9th, 2024 in-service day to August 25th, 2023 as presented.
Have a second? Scott, seconds. Any more discussion on that?
I just appreciate the note you made about working with negotiations to potentially change the in-service day. That helps me a lot.
Thank you. Then all in favor, raise your right hand. Motion carried, 6-0. Thank you. Next, we go to the discussion agenda, which starts with the capital improvement plan with Chris Upson.
Good evening. Bear with me while we grind the gears and talk about capital improvements. Okay. So this is the first reading of the fiscal year 24 capital improvement plan. I intend to go through the fiscal year '23 projects, kind of an overview, review of what we are doing or have done this year, and then get into the plan for next year. And then we'll talk at the end a little bit about our set-aside accounts, kind of our capital improvement savings accounts that we have and what the status of those are. So we completed or have underway 18 projects, a little down from last year, 18 projects this past year. Total expenditures, about $3.5 million. If you look at the chart that I have there, you can kind of visually see where our money's going as far as capital improvements go. Some high points, we got the South High tennis courts underway right now. Those should finish in the middle of May. They've tensioned those court slabs out there, and they're waiting for the concrete to cure, and we'll be off and running. Probably not going to make anything on this season, but we'll be ready to go for next season. The South High School parking lot will begin the second that the 4A state softball tournament is finished. We are angling to make sure that we get that done over the summer months, and we're ready to go for school. We had lunchroom furniture. We've had the phase 1 of lunchroom furniture been delivered. Those are at most notably Lakewood. I went to parent-teacher conferences for my child, and they were using them, and everyone kind of loved them. I don't think the kids particularly care for them. I don't know why. I told her not to worry about it. They're good. But a lot of that versatile seating, I witnessed that it's just really easy to use that seating in different fashions for different things, which causes us to not have to haul chairs back and forth everywhere. So good, I think good purchase there. The stadium lights will begin this summer as well. We're retrofitting. That project is underway and encumbered, retrofitting the stadium lights to LED lights. HVAC project is under contract right now. We're doing a variety of different HVAC replacements district-wide. We completed electronic entry control at Hageman, which was the final building to get that system, so we're all on the same system now. And then that's been helpful, I know, for MIS, who wants to have a locked door but also wants to be open for business. That's helped out there. We replaced the public address system at Lakewood Middle School. We have on order as of today the new grounds maintenance vehicles for Central Lakewood and South Middle School. We're working on design for a walk-in cooler at Kitchen 2. Also, the window replacement at SEC is in design right now. Hopefully, we're aiming for bidding and having that done over the summer. And then we're in the early phases of looking at aged bathrooms and what we do with those. And so that first Huesner project there is a test case of what is our standard of bringing up a bathroom without building a brand new one. But if, we've got a lot of 1960s bathrooms out there in grade schools, and how do we modernize those, and we're using this as a test case to see what we can do. So a review of our M&O's priorities. Safety of students and staff that's the first thing. Rarely will you find a capital improvement project that is on the plan that we approve that's related to safety of students and staff, because we do those immediately when there's an issue. So we get into many of our projects, our priority 2, which is protection of district assets. Then we get into delivery of program and aesthetics. I try, although we could spend every dollar we have protecting the district assets, I try to balance those out, have a priority, but eventually aesthetics do matter. And so we've kind of blended those together, keeping in mind that when we have when we have competing priorities or competing needs, we tend to lean towards the higher priorities. Any questions before I get into the new plan of what we've done in the old plan? Okay, summary here, we're looking at 4.45 million. I do want to note that the spend from fiscal year 24 did not include MIS. This plan and number does include MIS's number. I just want to make that note because the number difference feels odd, and it's not that out of whack from what we did last year. So big spend this coming year on roofing. Those tend to be expensive. That's why we save for them. What we have on the slate this summer is a replacement of 19 roof sections at Central High. That's a sizable piece. That will replace the entirety of the central roof minus what we replaced during the bond, and will provide a new roof. We did that about 3 years ago at South High and got them with a roof that was inside of 5 years old. We'll be replacing the roof at Schilling Elementary. That's 3 sections, again, minus what was new from the bond. And then the Salina Education Center will get a roof replacement as well.
Chris, on Schilling, does that include the portion that was damaged in the windstorm in December, or is that, how does that fit in there?
That's a great question. I need to see what got put in the plan for that, because we actually replaced that roof with a membrane during that time. So if we are somehow trying to pay for that, I'm gonna back that out and not do that. Because we knew that we would be coming in, that was a modified bit roof, a different roof system than what we're moving towards. So 2 ways you can replace a roof. You can tear off all the roofing and replace it new, which means you're putting on insulation and doing the whole thing. What I've elected to do in this district is where we have that built-up roof, that modified bit roof, to put a wear layer down on top of that of essentially dense glass, sheetrock, and then put a membrane on top of that, which is much more economical than a full tear-off, and we get that 30 years out of it again. We did that at that damaged roof section at Schilling, so it's ready to go now as before, but I can verify that and check on that to make sure.
Since Mother Nature helped with the destruction, save a little savings there, right?
She did help. I don't know. Eventually it was help, right? Okay, the next 2, these are all obviously in size order. The next 2 are technology contracts and technology hardware. These are annual recurring expenses. There's a ton of systems that we have to make sure that we can use our systems, is essentially what it is. We've seen over the years the VPN or MFA rather, new things come up that we got to deal with. We've got the cybersecurity monitoring, all of which I feel like MIS has been about a year ahead of mandates, insurance mandates, et cetera, that will require things, which is a good place to be. Next is tech hardware. Last year we had teacher laptop replacement, which was a big giant chunk of the M&O or the MIS expense. This is a typical year of $500,000 for Chromebooks. Every year, like clockwork, we're cycling them into the freshman classes, and they carry them all the way through. Next, HVAC, we're gonna replace the 2 boilers at Central High. This will be the first in my time of boiler replacements. Those typically last a really long time, and they're kind of vintage boilers in there. We did not do that during the bond. They were not quite old enough yet, and we kind of wanted to spend the money other places, and so they're about due before we have a big problem. So we're going to replace those. Some special projects. We will be refinishing the Lakewood Middle School gym floors this year for both gyms. That's a complete tear down to bare wood and restriping and reapplying the finish on those gym floors. Again, extend the life. Typically, every year what we do is we'll scuff that floor up and put another layer of finish on it. Well, that floor's had, 2 decades of refinish on it. And so it starts to look really gummy and not the great floor that you might see at our high schools, for example, because we did those during the bond and got them nice. So we're gonna bring those floors back to life at Lakewood. And then we're gonna install LED field lights at the South High track. And I think this has been discussed before, but this is really a program need on the availability of space to play games when it gets dark. In addition, CASA rules have changed and heat indexes, and there's a lot of meandering that coaches are trying to do to be able to have practice, and so being able to have practice in the evening hours is beneficial to our programs. Furniture, we'll see phase 2 of lunchroom furniture on there. There's three total phases, and that'll have lunchroom furniture replaced at all of our grade schools and Lakewood. South Middle, we're holding on that because they're happy with what they have for now, so we're gonna hold on that one. And then some classroom furniture at Huesner and Stewart, moving from desk or table situation to desk situation. Okay, flooring, we've got hallway replacements at Huesner, think Sunset and Heartland. If you've seen the updated flooring in those, that's the direction that I'm taking the district. Removal of the VCT tile that requires polishing, stripping and waxing and polishing to a luxury vinyl tile like we have here. That just needs to be damp mopped, and the maintenance piece on that is quite a bit less than on the VCT. In addition, I think that the vibe and the feel is much warmer, so we're moving towards that slowly throughout the district. Not doing them all at once, so that when they start to fail, we can afford to fix them as we go. Safety and security, we're gonna continue with PA replacements. We're gonna go to Central, because we've been having a lot of problems with one at Central, so we're gonna go ahead and we've tested it at Lakewood, and we're gonna move to the same system at Central and replace there. And then,
Mr. Upson, is the PA system, is that just among the classrooms, or is that outdoors?
it's both.
Okay.
So it's inside and outside, or just outside, or just inside, but you have the option of how do you want to broadcast? Do you want to just do inside the building or outside the building? But primarily what it's used for is our bell system runs through that. And then, the ability to pick up a phone and call a certain classroom or to make an announcement to the students for the Pledge of Allegiance, et cetera. That answer your question?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, finally, the additional CCTV cameras at South High. We knew during the bond that we were building a CCTV system from a sheet of paper. And we knew that once you build it, you'll figure out that there's holes and gaps and issues with that. So we've pieced that together at Central High in a series of different smaller projects to kind of get them where they need to be. This is one that will bring South High to what the administration believes they need at South High to effectively use the CCTV system. Equipment, who knew that theater curtains were that much money? We have very aging curtains systems at both of the auditoriums. We've brought in consultants to inspect for safety and to do a lot of the work of making sure that things are safe. However, the curtains are old and they're in need of fire retardancy is a thing that you want to have in your theater curtains because it's a lot of curtain. So rather than, we did the cost benefit analysis of do we recoat curtains with fire retardant or do we go back with new curtains, and we chose to go back with new curtains as the most economical. We're gonna get the most value for doing that. It is a side, there's just a lot of curtains. I didn't even know. I'm not a theater guy, but it's like, wow, there's just curtains for days. The one you see is not necessarily all the curtains that are there. Sorry, I went off on a tangent on that, but I was thoroughly impressed with that. Okay, fleet vehicles, recurring. The one project that we didn't really get underway this year in fiscal year '23 was fleet vehicle replacement. Frankly, I've been kicking the can on it because the vehicle market is just weird right now. I know Heartland went around and around and around just to get a car. So we did not buy any in '23. I'm carrying this every year, a couple of fleet vehicles. Those that could be, depending upon the situation, it could be a fleet shop truck, or it could be a Suburban or what we choose for student transport. Depends on the year and depends on the state of affairs as the year goes, what we choose to buy.
I had a question on that. I saw that throughout the years on the capital improvement plan.
Yes.
It's 80,000, 80,000, 80,000 every year. So are we just counting on the idea of the car prices staying the same, or are we gonna get like less car every year for the same amount?
No. That's a mistake.
Oh.
I probably should have put some inflation on that. I look at, I just need to change that. Hopefully I'm looking at some new vehicles to replace our Suburbans that are quite a bit less expensive than Suburbans and maybe more effective. They are less expensive, so I don't know. But that's a good catch because I should have had the inflation in that and kind of get a better gauge for that.
Thank you.
Okay. Parking lot repairs. Obviously, we have the South High parking lot major project. That's a big dollar figure. It's expensive to replace parking lots, much like roofs. Last year, working with Lisa, she is establishing a set-aside account similar to what we have for roofs and HVAC for parking lots, so that we can replace them without breaking the bank too bad, that we can save for that. This is a placeholder that I've carried year to year on miscellaneous repairs district-wide. The intention is that we do a contract every year to keep what we have serviceable, so we can prolong the life of our parking lots. And then the final building improvement, we have partial window replacement at Oakdale. There's a section of that original building that has fairly maybe original windows or near to it. So we'd like to change that because it's pane glass and they're really not very energy efficient, and all the teachers that are in those spaces, it's a challenge. And so we'd like to modernize that. Okay, questions about the program for the next year?
Two comments, then a quick question. First, the hallway, you mentioned the one at Heartland Kennedy. I had an opportunity to deliver a You Make a Difference award there recently, and it looks really nice. And the point you made about maintenance on those, that's got to save a ton of money and time for the building operators as well, I would think. So that's a significant one. And then the boiler, the building in which I toil is served by a boiler, and they waited too long to replace it, and that is a mess when you wait too long. So I'm glad that you're jumping it. It's not very sexy, as you might say, but it's so important in all those things. The building I work in had tunnels that brought some of the steam back and forth too, and when those start collapsing, I don't know what Central has, but when those start collapsing, it's a disaster.
We got just You just gotta go talk to a Central High student and you'll learn about the tunnels, but there's definitely tunnels under there.
The quick question on the lights at the south track.
Yes.
Do we ever actually host events at that track? I totally understand why it's needed for practice and all that, but are events actually ever hosted out there? I just don't know.
I do not know the answer to that.
No, but they will be. And here's why they will be. When we added seventh grade athletics, and when we joined the league that we're currently in, the way that they are scheduling the games, our games will go far enough into the evening that we will lose daylight now. Because it used to be that we would play eighth grade at one site, seventh grade at the other site. They're changing the way they're doing that. And so we're needing a lit field for both Lakewood and South Middle to play. So the solution was, as we talked about, do we light those fields? Do we light the South High field and have them schedule accordingly and share like the high schools do? And the decision was that it was more economical to go ahead and do the South High field. So we haven't been, but we will be. And for next year, Chris is working on a solution because we'll be in this situation next year where we'll have to use some portable lights because there just aren't enough nights at Salinas Stadium. We just have too many activities, which is a great thing for kids and for opportunities for our students.
Does that mean bleachers will be needed too then?
We will need seating over there. Any other questions?
Okay, the set-aside balances, I work with Lisa on kind of the state of affairs of the set-aside balances. We're in pretty good shape. There are like HVAC's getting a little bit low. I'll be working with Lisa on that. We like to keep those at a certain level, frankly, for catastrophic failures. If we end up, can we cover a catastrophic issue? And I don't want to deplete the bank too much, and so we'll be working on that. Any questions on set-asides? Any questions overall?
Just would say, I've said it before, but I so appreciate how you and your predecessors have laid all this plan. I mean, it's, to have this done, I know we're ahead of other districts significantly, and it's great work that makes better use of funds and the rotational planning on all the buildings. It makes the buildings last longer. It's great work, so thank you.
I appreciate it. It's definitely a team effort. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you.
If you don't have any questions, I will obviously answer questions all month long because I'll be back. We'll talk about it for approval next month. But if at any time you're reading it and have a question, you can send it to Lynn and Deborah or directly to me, and I'll answer it.
Okay.
And I'll make those corrections that you mentioned, Ann.
Oh, sure. Thank you. Okay. Next on the agenda is the handbooks with Chris, starting with the elementary with Krista Lindberger.
Good evening. I don't have any colorful charts to present to you all, so tonight I'm here just to propose the handbook changes for the elementary piece. And the big significant thing I just want to point out to you all is the handbook for the changes for the elementary, the 7, is just so that we're aligned with board policy, that we are aligned with our health curriculum, because you know we made changes to our 4th and 5th grade health curriculum, state statute, and also our South Carolina public school policies. So that's the significant changes for the 7 proposals of the elementary handbook changes. Do I have any questions about the elementary handbook changes? Okay. Well, thank you.
Thank you. Next is the middle school handbook with Curtis Stevens.
Okay, good evening. Tonight, I really only bring one change for middle school handbook, and that is the attendance. As mentioned by Ms. Lindberg, very similar, that policy, just some highlights again. It's bringing clarity to the wording. It reiterates the importance of attendance. And one of the things I just wanted to note on that for anybody listening in the audience tonight.
Hold on a minute. We don't have any microphone over here. Are we? Our guy in the back, I'm hoping he's paying attention. You could talk really loudly.
We'll try this then. A student who misses 10 days a year is less likely to enroll in post-secondary training, technical and college. So reiterating the importance of attendance and that wording policy has been added. And again, overall, our goal is to bring clarity to the wording as it relates to the importance of daily attendance, but also bringing it up to code with the definition of chronic absenteeism. And finally, the stages and truancy referral process, we changed the wording from policy to procedure. And that really is all I have. After last year, we had so many changes to the handbooks collapsing the middle school, two of them into one. We did a lot of that work last year. Any questions on the middle school handbook?
I would like to ask, am I on? It's green. Okay. Who, is that a state statute from the legislature about chronic absenteeism? Was that the KSDE or was it the state school board? Where did it come from?
Great question. The Kansas State Department of Education actually defines chronic absenteeism, and that verbiage is added to the handbook. And if it's okay to go ahead and read it, I'll note it. It is defined as both excused and unexcused absences. Any student missing 10% or more of days that school has been in session at any point in the school year is considered chronically absent. For example, if a student has been enrolled in school for 40 days with 4 or more absences, they are chronically absent. Students can decrease their absenteeism percentage by attending school regularly. Students who decrease their attendance to under 10% are no longer considered chronically absent. So the wording really is from the Kansas State Department of Education, and the changes that we're making in the handbook is to make that congruent.
Thank you. Sure, just speak loudly.
Yes, truancy is actually defined by state statute. And truancy is 3 unexcused absences in a row, 5 in a semester, or 7 in a school year. And in the past, we always focused on truancy. The problem is that any time a student is missing class, they're missing learning. They're missing learning because they're missing the conversation that's happening, the discussion that's happening. Teachers do a lot during a class that isn't recorded necessarily in a grade. And so what we know is that if students are missing 10% of the school days, they miss more than a year worth of learning in their K-12 experience. So we really are addressing both. We're addressing truancy because we have to by law, and we're still referring students to the county attorney because we're required to by law if they're truant by the state statute definition. But we're also addressing now chronic absenteeism because we need kids in school every single day unless they're ill.
Thank you. Okay, so that's the change in the middle school. So do you want to go on to the high school?
Yeah, the high school is same, second verse, same as first, really, it's the attendance policy. I want to reiterate and add on there as well, when we went out into the community and talked to a variety of different businesses, 7 that I've got a list here of, the number one thing we were told is, Stevens, if the worker will show up, we'll make it happen for him. And so I just want to reiterate tonight, for anybody listening, hopefully they can hear me, we have wonderful educators. If we have your students through our doors, they will do wonderful things. And that is echoed by our community and their employers. So the high school handbook is really the same verbiage, updating the chronic absenteeism and stressing the importance of attendance.
Thank you. Any questions? No questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
And the next thing is the athletic handbook with Ms. Exline.
Okay, so on the athletic handbook, we do have a couple changes. The athletic board, which is the athletic directors and the secondary administrators, Lisa Peters, Chris Upson, myself, we go through this each year.
And we are making the recommendation that we expand the ability to dual participate in athletics to include ninth graders. We had initially, when we put that in, we said 10th through 12th. We really feel like after having done that several years, that 9 through 12 is appropriate. And so we'd like to expand that to ninth graders. We also have changed the deadline to apply to be a dual participant. We bumped that back a little bit so that to be a dual participant in the fall, we moved the deadline from the spring prior to the fall, for instance, to make it a little bit more reasonable for students. And then on the coaching positions, we changed some wording to just be consistent throughout the document, and we removed as needed on the assistant coach for both boys and girls tennis at the middle school level. We have enough participation. Okay, so we have enough participation at middle school tennis that we really do need two coaches for coaching, for supervision, for safety. So we are. And then we also, I told you about removing wording to just get more consistency. The other area where we need to adjust coaching is at the high school level, we had a combined coach between the two high schools. We have really great programs and a lot of student interest in that program. And so we really are needing a coach at both high schools. Let's see. And then on impact testing, the Salina Regional Health Center is no longer using impact testing, and so the new trainer agreement removed impact testing. Instead, they have a sideline assessment that they do when there's a possible concussion, and so we need to remove that verbiage from our athletic handbook as well. The last thing is in relationship to a board policy change that you're going to hear about in work session this evening. We have a board policy that differs from the KASB policy that includes some procedures for when we're proposing to you adding an athletic activity. And so what we're suggesting is that we go more toward the KASB policy, but we maintain that language because the language really is good for what you need to know when we propose a new activity, and that instead we pull that out of board policy, but we place it in the handbook as this is what we would provide to you if we would recommend adding a new activity. So you'll see that language added in the athletic handbook, and those are the changes we're recommending. Any questions?
No questions then. Thank you very much. Next on the agenda is the school board
Madam
report.
President?
Oh, yes, sorry.
If there aren't objections, I would move we move the handbooks presented to the action agenda and approve those this evening.
Any objections to that? Do I have a second?
I was going to ask the same thing, so I would second that.
Okay. Any discussion? Any reason why we shouldn't, either of you with handbooks back there? Not you either. Okay then. All in favor, raise your right hand. Motion carried, 6-0. Thank you very much. Okay, now we're ready for school board reports and upcoming dates of importance. We have Sunday, May 7th, the retirement recognition at Lakewood at 3 o'clock. Sunday, May 14th are the graduations at Tony's Pizza Event Center. First for South High at 2 o'clock and Central High at 5 o'clock. And we have a location now for the Thursday, June 22nd, Salina Adult Education Center graduation, which is going to be at Lakewood Commons area at 7 o'clock. I guess last year we were remembering that we had to move to the storm shelter last year, and it worked out just fine. And we weren't hit by a tornado or anything. Okay, let's go to let's hear from the board members. Mark, how about we start with you?
So with a relatively short month, with the March meeting being later after spring break, the meetings I normally attend take place later this week. So Thursday I'll be at the Smoky Hill Education Service Center meeting, and following Monday, the
high play, leaving Iowa. And I went to the Central High National Honor Society induction ceremony and the South High Awards Assembly. So, back to you, Superintendent Exline.
Okay, so I have continued my SPS chat sessions, had a session with our support staff, and they had many positives that they shared. They talked about our efforts to reduce chronic absenteeism, which we just heard about, that they're seeing a difference, and this was social workers, counselors, nurses, this was support staff. Our marketing initiatives, they've noticed a difference in the face of the district out in our marketing. They also mentioned the chats, that they appreciated that opportunity to just visit with me. They talked about the interim academic assessments that our Educational Programs Department has made available to staff this year. Roving teachers comes up again and again and again, and that is our staff that we have hired through ESSER dollars to serve as full-time substitutes. They really feel like that is a help for consistency for students and for staff members as well. And then they also spoke about school-based pre-K as a positive. Areas to grow, they shared that some clarity about the education technology and support, who supports what, so we'll work on that. They talked about instructional assistant allocations, and so we'll be working on that. And then pay for our instructional assistants, our paras, and other classified staff, because those people really do make their jobs easier and help meet students' needs. Then I met with the community, and we talked about post-secondary opportunities, and I appreciate, we had great attendance at that. I appreciate the panel of students that we had. 3 students participated, and then also Dr. Stevens helped with that session, and so got some good information to parents and shared with them that, you know, if you'll just give us 45 minutes, we can save you $47,000, I think is, you know, what it really is if people will take advantage of the opportunities that we have for their students. Linda Edson's culinary students, her internship students, did hors d'oeuvres for us, and they did a fabulous job as well. So we did release the 4th safety video, and so Jennifer's office has been busy doing that. That was on reporting concerns and how we coordinate with first responders. Remember, that was in response to the survey that we did last fall, where our community said they really wanted more information about what we were doing as far as our safety initiatives. The last one of the year is in process right now, and that will address our threat assessment procedures and mental health resources that we have available for students. And so when it's all said and done, we will have done 5 videos that we've released to try to address that community feedback that we got back in October. We also, our building leadership teams did the 5th session of our threat assessment training this month. We really are working toward having a good model for assessing when threats are made in our schools, and our SROs are also engaged in that training. We started our Test It for the Stop It app. If you'll remember, that is the alert system that we are going to be rolling out, that in the case of an emergency, that you can very easily notify the office for some additional assistance support. And so that our testing began. And so my cell phone was ringing like mad with all of the testing that was happening. And then finally, I just want to say thank you to HR. They did a mini job fair, and we really focused on maintenance and operations positions, food service positions, and substitutes. And we actually found several candidates for hard-to-fill positions. It was just a 2-hour little time slot, but we had 9 candidates that came. And so with as tough as the job market is, we felt like that was a celebration. So definitely time well spent, and my understanding is that they are already planning the next one for April 21st. They felt like it was a good enough investment of time that we needed to do that again. So thank you.
Thank you. Next on the agenda is the information from Heartland Early Education, and then we have executive sessions. So we have an executive session for negotiations. How long do you think we'll need for that? 15 minutes, okay. Anyone have that? Gabe?
Madam President, I move the Board of Education go into executive session at 7:05 for 15 minutes for the purpose of discussing
executive session to go for personnel. Do I have a